Call of Duty Black Ops 6 is here. It's upon us. It's been out over the weekend and I've had a chance to play. And it's been a good 5 years or so since I last enjoyed a Call of Duty campaign. And that was the Modern Warfare 2019 reboot remake. And then even longer if you disregard that. This is dating back to maybe like Modern Warfare 3, the original at this point. This time, Treyarch are taking over the reins of the game, and this one has been in development for over 4 years or so, so the expectations are understandably high after what happened last year with Modern Warfare 3. So with the release of Black Ops 6, and conveniently with it being on Game Pass, shout out to Microsoft, I forced myself to play the campaign to answer a few questions. Is the Black Ops 6 campaign worth playing, and could I have fun with it? So today, we're going to find out. Black Ops 6 has us returning to the Black Ops universe. A lot of the stories that we've had all the way from Black Ops 1 and 2, and then later on in Black Ops 3. And we have the returning characters of Woods and Adler, but it introduces a new cast of characters that are attempting to stop a looming threat of Pantheon. And their focus is trying to release a bioweapon onto the world, so there's some pretty high stakes here. Treyarch's approach to Call of Duty campaigns has shifted from the more traditional theaters of war and these big full-scale battles into more of a spy thriller, espionage type of deal, and Black Ops 6 is no different. It seems to be pulling a lot of inspiration from Mission Impossible and James Bond, but they aren't just doing this in story. They're also doing this in gameplay as well. They are switching up the formula from the traditional linear gameplay to a more open approach to mission design, and it's a refreshing change to the typical FPS levels that we usually get. This is apparent in two missions in the game, Most Wanted and High Rollers. Most Wanted has you infiltrating a political event to gain access to an underground black site to free Russell Adler. You can tackle this by getting a photo opportunity with a senator, and there's 3 different ways that you can go about it. I chose to uncover a scandal from the senator, some things to do with a bit of a sleazy tape that no one really wants to get out, and then we're able to blackmail him through his wife and then able to get a photo opportunity that way, which would then give us access to this black site. None of them have an overall impact on the story, but you can tackle these in multiple ways on the mission, and it's quite fun to do, so there's a little bit of replay value there. It certainly adds some much needed freedom being able to do this in a more linear environment, but it gives you a little bit of a refreshing difference to what we've seen before. High Rollers, on the other hand, has us pulling off a casino heist, very much like Ocean's 11 or insert any casino heist that you've seen in a movie. And this is all to get information from the vault for the bioweapon that we've been chasing after. We go between each of the team's perspectives, opening security and getting behind the scenes with one of the main characters there, playing poker as a distraction, cleaning out the underground of baddies, and there's this nice mix of bringing all the team together to then climax the mission. Both missions have enough action, intrigue, and gameplay that's different to make them memorable. This surprised me because most of the initial viewing of Black Ops 6, I thought we would have maybe one of these missions, and it was just kind of like the gimmick that they were trying to sell us. They've actually built upon it and added multiple missions into the game. But that wasn't the only surprise that Treyarch has up their sleeve. There's definitely a lot more here, especially when they gave us a whole open world mission to explore, featuring both side and main objectives to complete in whatever way we wanted to. I spent a good hour and a half on this section, trying out different weapons and approaches to objectives, and it was definitely a refreshing change to what I have played previously. I haven't even talked about my favourite part of the game. That comes when we explore an underground facility that's been affected by the bioweapon we've spent so long searching for in the game. But rather than messing with the player's screen a little bit or having some crazy effects on screen, no, this just turns into this mind warp of a mission that includes zombies, creepy dolls, boss fights, undercover espionage, and this exploration of this facility, and it turns Call of Duty into something completely different. It turns it into like Control or Fear, and it basically has borderline horror moments in there, and I just wasn't expecting it, and I just sat there the entire time with a WTF face and like what is going on in my Call of Duty game right now. And I think that is the reason why I loved it so much. It just changed the norm and did something completely different. There is also another mission later on in the game, which I won't spoil, that has just enough intrigue and like these crazy mind warp moments. And I really think that you need to go and experience it for yourself, because it's one of the best missions that I've played in an FPS in a while. I won't sit here and say what I'm playing is groundbreaking, but it is very much groundbreaking for a Call of Duty game. I've not seen this before, and I keep saying that because this is the first time they've really tried to change the formula and do something different that I have really, really enjoyed. And it definitely makes it one of the better Call of Duty campaigns out there. So much so that I thought the game could have actually been longer. Saying that, I clocked in around 6 to 7 hours or so on my playthrough on the hardened difficulty. And if you want to go back through and explore all of the other choices of gameplay, like go in and do a different outlook before the mission, then you can definitely go and do that. If you want to see more reviews and content like this in future, make sure you subscribe to the channel. The missions are also separated up by this new addition to the game, which is like a hub area, like a safe house that you go back to, where you can go and get extra dialogue. A lot of the exposition is told here as well. There's also some really cool puzzles that you can go and find if you go and explore this mansion. And you can also talk to each character and find out more of their backstory and their current stance on the previous mission. And there's also this added element of progression where you can spend cash that you find in these missions to like buy a weapons bench, a training area, a gear station, and you could probably go through the whole game not using any of it. At least that's how I felt. It doesn't feel like it's the most fleshed out or needs to be here, but I think it may have an effect on the final mission when you're doing stuff there, but I don't really know. Gameplay, however, is solid. There isn't too much that I can complain about. There's a lot of options that you can go with in terms of weaponry. There's a lot of gadgets that you can use, like a homing throwing knife, or you can use the incredibly horrible to drive but fun to use RCXD. There's also the option to go full stealth or guns blazing. However, you will run into enemy variety problems at certain points, because it gets to the point where there's these heavily armored enemies that just have 5 or 6 magazines that you'll dump into them, or one of the bosses in the hallucination section of the game I previously mentioned. And it's not as bad, but it definitely doesn't feel the greatest when going up against those enemies. Like, everything else is pretty good. It's just when anything has super spongy health that it just doesn't feel great. There isn't much to say in terms of Black Ops' core gameplay. It's good, and the introduction of Omni Movement also is nice. It adds this fluidity and flair to the game. Like, gung fu is, a lot of people have been dumbing it essentially, and the gunplay is just the same as it's always been. It's good, and I think you'll have a good time here regardless of what weapons you're using. I really enjoyed using the double akimbo pistols. I wasn't that great with them, but it was nice to run around. You can kind of John Wick as you're running around killing things, so I definitely appreciate those options to be had. I know I've talked about missions and things that we've done in the missions, but I do think it's important to talk about the narrative without giving away any spoilers. As a returning Call of Duty player, a brief refresher of previous events in other games such as Cold War or in the just Black Ops in general would have been nice to kind of give you a idea of what each character's relationship is with one another, especially Woods and Adler, and it would lay the groundwork for some of those relationships to kind of blossom a little bit more and add a little bit more impact to the story. But with that being said, the main story of Black Ops 6 is all about stopping Pantheon. They're trying to release a full-scale panic into the US by releasing a bioweapon, which is just an understandably high-stakes situation, and we follow the characters of Woods, Marshall, Sev, Felix, and Adler as they go about their events throughout the story. It's got all the hallmarks of a classic Call of Duty story, a little bit of intrigue, a bit of betrayal, a little bit of bending of history, and it does so many things right throughout the story. The mission structure definitely does help that, but I do have a few gripes, mainly with the ending of the game. Without going into too many spoilers, the ending just kind of happens and wraps up really quickly with a little nod to the next campaign in the future, kind of leaving breadcrumbs ready to whatever the next game that Treyarch plans. It feels like they set everything up right, and it just didn't have the payoff that at least I was expecting. It just felt like they set it up for the next game, and they like wrapped up the main bad guy in a really quick way, and it just didn't feel like the payoff that we could have had, because a lot of the characters in the game are very fleshed out. They have some good impactful moments. I just wish the ending was better, and I think it may be down to maybe runtime that was causing it to kind of be rushed. It just didn't feel like the ending was as fleshed out as it could have been, and there was a really crazy ending mission that they potentially could have done that was played out via dialogue. But alas, I do think it hampers the experience, but not enough to say, okay, this is the worst Call of Duty campaign ever. I just feel like the payoff wasn't exactly there, as opposed to some of the other games that I've played in the franchise. Call of Duty Black Ops 6's campaign does so many things right for Call of Duty game. The presentation is always top notch. The cutscenes and set pieces in Black Ops 6 are awesome. It shakes up the typical mission structure and offers something new and refreshing. Despite my issues with the ending, I did have a great time globetrotting and experiencing the story that the game had to offer. I had a great deal of fun, and if I'm being honest, I wasn't expecting to, which is always a nice surprise. So let's get the verdict. Let's answer the question. Is Call of Duty Black Ops 6 worth playing? I can recommend that you play this, but only if you're picking the game up on Game Pass. The other question I wanted to ask was, could I have fun with this? And I would answer, yes. I had a pretty enjoyable experience that I think many people will also have when they play this campaign. I don't think it's enough to sell a $70 game, but you aren't buying Call of Duty for the campaign alone. You're getting the multiplayer, you're also getting a zombies experience as well, with the addition of more content coming later on in the year. And the quick thoughts on those are, I really enjoy the multiplayer, it's a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed what I've played with the zombies so far. I don't know personally how many hours I will put into them, but I definitely think there's enough content there to engage with. I really wanted to discuss in this video the campaign separately to those two modes, because I really enjoy FPS shooter campaigns, and Call of Duty has been one of those in the past. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 will certainly be up there with some of my favorite Call of Duty campaigns. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As always, if you've enjoyed this video and it's been informative, leave a like on it, subscribe if you are new, and as always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.